For privacy reasons, the names of individuals involved in this case have been changed. Stay tuned. A peaceful afternoon turns into a nightmare. On March 6, 1959, Emily Dawson, a 9-year-old girl, left home with a bright smile, carrying a box of chocolates to raise money for the Girl Scouts. But she never returned. The entire city of Spokane was plunged into a frantic search. Every street and every forest was searched, but there was not a trace. And then, more than 2 weeks later, a horrifying discovery ended all hope. Emily's tiny body buried in a deserted ravine. Who kidnapped and murdered the little girl? What challenges did the police face in identifying the killer? And what kept the case in the dark for 62 years before the truth was revealed? Where every unsolved mystery contains secrets that want to be revealed. Step into the darkness and explore them with us. Don't hesitate to leave a like as an encouragement for us. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to update the most classic cases. On the afternoon of March 6, 1959, Lily Thompson, a 9-year-old girl living in Spokane, Washington, left her home with a box of chocolates in her hand. She was eager to participate in a fundraiser for the Bluebirds Girl Scouts, an organization for girls who loved outdoor activities. Lily was a good, gentle child, full of energy and loved to explore. At that time, it was not unusual for girls to walk around the neighborhood selling candy. No one thought this would be the last time they would see Lily. Lily began her journey in the early afternoon, knocking on doors in the neighborhood, smiling and greeting each person and introducing her box of candy. Some neighbors remembered seeing her around 4:30 p.m., happily chatting with acquaintances. But then Lily disappeared. As dusk fell, and Lily still hadn't returned home, her mother began to worry. Lily's family immediately went looking for her, visiting every neighbor and calling her name all over the neighborhood, but no one knew where she had gone. Worry quickly turned to panic as night fell, and there was still no news of Lily. Her parents called the police, and within hours, a massive search was launched. Police and hundreds of volunteers searched every alley, every park, and every forest around. Flashlights swept the deserted streets, and Lily's name echoed through the night. Every bush and every corner was searched, but not a trace of her was found. In the days that followed, news of Lily's disappearance appeared in every newspaper. Spokane residents were bewildered. Could a little girl disappear without a trace in broad daylight? Theories began to emerge. Could Lily be lost? Did someone kidnap her? If so, what was the motive? As all hope of finding her alive faded, a grisly discovery ended it all. On the morning of March 7, 1959, the search for Lily Thompson entered its second day. Police and hundreds of volunteers continued to search every street, residential area, and nearby woods in the hope of finding some clues. The local military was also mobilized to assist in the search, mobilizing motor vehicles to scan hard to reach areas. Around noon that day, a military vehicle carrying 6 soldiers participating in the search suddenly lost control and plunged into the icy Spokane River. The vehicle quickly sank into the rushing water, and despite immediate rescue efforts, 3 soldiers were unable to escape and died. The tragedy shocked the community, which was already grieving over Lily's mysterious disappearance. However, her family and searchers persisted, refusing to give up hope. In the following days, many reports of sightings of a girl who looked like Lily appeared. Some witnesses reported seeing a girl walking near the edge of the woods, while others reported seeing a girl being forced into a strange car. Some reports suggested that Lily might have been taken to an area far from the city center. Every time a tip came in, police were called in to investigate, but all came to a dead end. As the days passed in tension and despair, Lily's family clung to the hope that she might still be alive. They appeared in the press, begging anyone with information to contact the police. Flyers were posted everywhere, and neighbors, friends, and strangers were hoping for a miracle. But as time passed, the clues began to fade. On March 22, 1959, after 16 days of relentless searching, A horrifying discovery ended all hope. On the afternoon of March 22, 1959, as the sun began to set behind the mountains, two hunters were traveling through the 7-mile cave area, a desolate and rugged area outside of Spokane. The area was known for its rugged terrain, deep ravines, and rarely traveled trails. As they were passing through a small valley, they stopped when they noticed something unusual among the dry leaves and brush. At first, they thought it was an old abandoned doll, but as they got closer, they realized it was the body of a child. Terrified, the two hunters immediately ran to a nearby farm to call the police. Investigators soon arrived at the scene. When the officers arrived at the ravine, they were stunned by the sight before them. Emily Dawson's small body lay curled on the cold ground, covered in dry branches as if someone had tried to hide it. She was still wearing her Bluebird Scout dress, but her clothes had been torn and used to tie herself up. The thin rope was still tightly wrapped around Emily's neck, leaving deep marks on her pale skin. Based on the condition of her body, investigators determined that she had been strangled to death just hours after she went missing. Even more frightening, a subsequent autopsy confirmed that she had been sexually assaulted before being murdered. Bruises on her wrists and ankles suggested that Emily may have been restrained, preventing her from escaping. The fact that the body was found in such a remote, unpopulated area led police to believe that the killer may have been familiar with the terrain. One theory is that the killer may have approached Emily under the pretense of buying candy, then used her naivety to lure or force her into his car. Once he had captured the victim, he drove to this isolated area, where no one could hear her cries for help, to commit his barbaric act. The truth was so heartbreaking that the entire city fell into shock and outrage. Emily Dawson, an innocent 9-year-old girl who had only gone out to sell candy for a fundraiser, faced a painful death at the hands of a cold-blooded killer. Who did this? Why Emily? Had he been watching her all along? These questions haunted not only Emily's family, but the entire Spokane community. People began to fear that a predator was lurking in the city, waiting for an opportunity to strike again. However, when the police devoted all their efforts to searching for the killer, they realized that there were almost no clues. The killer acted in a cruel but calculated manner, leaving no obvious traces behind. Will justice be served? Or will the killer forever remain hidden in the shadows? At large? Immediately after Emily Dawson's body was found, Spokane police mobilized their full force to search for the killer. They knew that the killer was probably still around, lurking in the shadows, and would strike again. A massive investigation was launched, involving the FBI, Washington State Police, and local agencies. First, detectives identified people who might have seen Emily the afternoon she disappeared. They interviewed hundreds of people, including neighbors, friends, teachers, and customers who had bought candy from her that day. Men who lived in the area where Emily was kidnapped were also questioned, especially those with a history of child abuse or sexual violence. Police also extended their investigation to Fairchild Air Force Base, not far from the crime scene, to verify the alibi of soldiers stationed there. However, in 1959, forensic technology was still very limited. Fingerprints could not be scanned electronically as they are today, and DNA analysis did not exist. Although the investigation team collected some evidence at the scene, it was not enough to identify the perpetrator. Emily's clothes were thoroughly examined, but no blood or biological traces that could be used to trace the suspect were found. The rope used to strangle her was also analyzed, but it was a common type, widely sold in many stores, making it impossible for the police to trace its exact origin. Suspects were rounded up and questioned repeatedly, but no one had enough evidence to convict. Some people with criminal records were suspected, but all had clear alibis. Several witnesses reported seeing a suspicious car near the place where Emily was kidnapped, but no one remembered the license plate number or the driver's identity. All traces gradually became hopeless. The investigation dragged on for months, then years, but no breakthroughs were made. The police ran out of clues, and the case was eventually classified as unsolved. Emily Dawson's family lived in excruciating pain for decades. Not only did they lose their little girl, but they also didn't know who took her life. Every year, on the anniversary of Emily's death, they placed a bouquet of flowers at the spot where she was found. But justice still eluded them. As time passed, the memory of the case faded from many people's minds. But for Emily's family, the pain never subsided. They still carried a faint hope that one day, the killer would be brought to justice. But will that day ever come? For more than 6 decades, the Emily Dawson case has remained one of Spokane's most heartbreaking mysteries. Her family, the local community, and the police force have never stopped searching for the truth. Although the case has been classified as unsolved, each year a team of investigators continues to revisit old documents, hoping that modern technology will one day help them solve the case. In 2021, a breakthrough in DNA genealogy opened doors that were previously unimaginable. DNA evidence collected at the scene in 1959, a small amount of skin cells from Emily's clothing, was sent to Parabon Nanolabs, a company specializing in forensic genetic analysis. Previously, the amount of DNA was too small to be of any use, but with next-generation DNA isolation technology, experts were able to extract a complete genetic profile. This DNA data was then entered into GeneMatch, a genealogy database where millions of people around the world upload their genetic information to search for relatives. After comparing it to the genetic database, experts found a DNA sequence that matched several people in the system. However, this was not the DNA of the killer, but rather his descendants, meaning the killer was distantly related to several people whose data was in the system. Using this information, genealogists began tracing the family tree, gradually narrowing down the suspects. Eventually, all the clues led to one name: Richard Hale, a man who had served in the U.S. Army in the late 1950s. When police checked his military records, they discovered that in 1959, Richard was stationed at Fairchild Air Force Base, just a few miles from the crime scene. His personal history was also filled with suspicious signs, with allegations of harassment against women and a long record of domestic violence. However, at the time, these allegations were not enough to warrant a conviction, and Richard had never been arrested for any crime. When police tracked Richard down, they discovered that he had died in 2002, carrying the secret of his horrific crimes with him for decades. When police contacted Kathy Hoff, the suspect's daughter, she volunteered to submit a DNA sample to help the investigation.
I looked into the case. A little girl was murdered in 1959, and when I found out my father was a suspect, it was heartbreaking.
Kathy said in a video played at a Spokane police press conference.
It was devastating to know that not only my father but a member of my family could have done this.
All her life, Kathy believed her father had committed suicide due to depression. However, after learning the truth, she had a completely different perspective on his death. She confided,
"Now I think, no, he's evil. It was a run."
Subsequent forensic results confirmed that the probability that Kathy Hoff was related to the DNA sample taken from Emily's clothing was 2.9 million times higher than that of a random person in the population. With this irrefutable evidence, detectives obtained a warrant to exhume the suspect's body to test the DNA directly from his bones. The results ultimately confirmed that he was the man who murdered Emily Dawson. Although they were unable to bring him to justice with the incontrovertible DNA evidence, the investigation officially closed the case of Emily Dawson. Finally, after 62 long years, her family had the answers they had been waiting for. In November 2021, Spokane police held a major press conference, announcing that the Emily Dawson case had finally been solved. After more than 62 years, the killer had been identified through advanced DNA genealogy technology. Although they could not arrest him because he had died nearly 2 decades earlier, investigators said there was no longer any doubt about his identity. At the press conference, veteran investigators, government representatives, and forensic experts sat before dozens of reporters. The chief investigator emotionally apologized to Emily Dawson's family.
"We are heartbroken that we could not bring justice to Emily sooner. We know that nothing can make up for the loss her family has suffered. But today, we finally have answers. We know who committed this crime, and Emily has not been forgotten.
Emily's family, after more than 6 decades of grief, could not hold back their tears when they heard these words. A family member shared,
"We have waited our whole lives for this moment. Although the killer will not face justice in a court of law, at least now we can rest assured that the truth has been revealed."
The story of Emily Dawson is not only a heartbreaking tragedy, but also a powerful reminder of the advances in criminal investigation. What was once considered hopeless in 1959 has become possible thanks to modern science. The persistence of investigators, the development of DNA technology, and the tireless efforts of the community have helped bring answers that no one thought would ever come. Although the killer is no longer alive, Emily Dawson's memory will forever be etched not only in the hearts of her family, but also in the minds of the investigators who spent decades pursuing the truth. Emily was not just a victim of a heartbreaking case, but also a symbol of perseverance and determination. The perseverance of her family, the investigators, and the community who never gave up hope of finding the truth. For more than 6 decades, Emily's case has been a constant in Spokane's unsolved files. Veteran detectives say that even after they've retired or moved on to other jobs, the name Emily Dawson still haunts them. Every year, on the day Emily went missing, many police officers quietly visit her grave, silently promising that one day, justice will be served. And they keep their word. Thanks to the advancement of science, a case that had been thought to be lost forever has been solved. This achievement not only brings comfort to Emily's family but also gives hope to other families who are also waiting for answers about missing or murdered loved ones. Emily's case proves that no crime is truly buried in time, and no justice is truly forgotten when there are still people determined to find it. More than 60 years after Emily's death, her name will still resonate as a reminder that, no matter how long it takes, the truth will eventually come to light. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this story and want to dive deeper into more intriguing mysteries, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update.